oxygen species or ROS produce and can be damaging to the host tissue.
We'll try to answer if coconut oil would be our friend or our foe in this time of pandemic.
Not go much into the different minerals or the different vitamins. So I will just discuss to you some of the important ones that have been studied for patients with COVID-19.
Increase your serum cholesterol, but it may increase also your HDL.
If the patient has mildly symptomatic patient or allergic symptoms, vitamin C again is given. Now, your vitamin D3 is increased from up to 2,000 to 4,000 units per day. Kasama pa rin ang vitamin B complex and zinc. Okay?
We have ongoing studies on COVID. So, but then the rationale for using it for COVID will be mainly due to the antiviral effects that were seen in the earlier studies.
Actually, yung mga vitamins na yan, kinukontinue pa rin. Kasi mga patients na nag-COVID para ma-retain nila yung resistance nila.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, the PSD Select will have its sixth episode. This is Dr. Marcy Cruz, Treasurer of PSD. I will be your host and moderator for tonight, together with our partner, Warwag. Let's start with a short prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, you alone are worthy of honor, glory, and praise. With you, we can overcome every storm, including the global impact COVID-19 is having on our world. Right now, we are asking you to heal those who are sick and protect those who are not. Give us leaders extra wisdom as they navigate this pandemic and economic uncertainty. Strengthen your global church. Reveal to us how we can partner together to reach the needs of those around us. Calm our fears. Fill us with your hope, joy, and peace as we continue to trust in you. Use this pandemic to pave the way for spiritual renewal. We want your glory, power, and healing to be on display. God bless our activity, our speaker, and participants. This we ask in Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Tonight, we have two wonderful lectures. Our topic tonight entitled Diabetes and COVID, a Viral Romance. The first topic will be diabetes and sleep, followed by diabetes and mental health. This will be followed by Q&A. I want to remind everyone to write your name at the chat box, which will serve as your attendance. Our prizes will be PPE and alcohol dispensers. These are still available, so be an active participant. Let's call Warwag, our partner for tonight's webinar, the marketing manager, Mr. Mike Cruz.
Good evening, doctors. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be part of your activity. Tonight, we are very happy to join you and have the chance to partner with you. We are Warwag Pharma, and I'm Mike Cruz, your marketing manager, together with our sales team. Warwag Pharma is a European company based in Germany, and we are present in more than 35 countries. Our goal is to expand to new markets, including our country, Philippines. We empower health to conscious people like you, our dear doctors, who are highly effective to provide a highly effective solution to prevent and treat lifestyle diseases. Our main focus are more on for diabetic comorbidities and secondary diseases, for pain and for uralgia, and are strengthening metabolism with biofactors, vitamins and minerals, and trace elements for lifestyle diseases and treatment and prevention. With that, doctor, I would like to give you our sales manager just to present to you our team for Warwag Pharma. JC. Okay. Anyways, doctor, yes, JC, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, doctors. Once again, my name is JC Domincel, and I'm the sales manager at Warwag Pharma Philippines. And also, we would like to introduce to all of you our sales force or specialist representative. To start with, I would like to call on Princess. Okay.
Hi, sir. Hello po. Good evening po.
Okay. Princess will be assigned to cover Philippine Heart Center, East Avenue, and KTI up to Fairview. And next is Gerald. Okay. Gerald will be covering St. Luke's, QC, De Los Santos, Capitol, and UDMC. Philip, are you here, okay. Philip? Okay, Philip will be covering UST's Chinese Gen Metro Manila and Jose Reyes. Diane?
Hi.
Hi, sir. Hi, everyone. Good evening.
All right. Diane will be covering PGH, Maddox, Manila Med, and San Juan de Dios. Kat, are you here?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Kat will be covering San Juan and Mandaluyong area. Loie. I think Loie is not here. Loie will be assigned to cover Pasig, Marikina, and Rizal. Rose?
Yes.
Okay, Rose will be covering Makati Med, Taguig, and Pateros. And lastly, I would like to call on Viva. All right. Viva will be covering Parañaque, Las Piñas, and Muntinlupa. And as of now, doctors, we have a total of 9 specialist representatives to promote our products to all our customers. And since we are a startup company here in the Philippines, we will focus covering Metro Manila in the meantime, but we plan to expand our business outside Metro Manila soon. And again, on behalf of our company, Warwag Philippines, we would like to thank you for this opportunity to partner with Philippine Society of Diabetologists. Yeah. Thank you so much po.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Cruz and the Warwag family. So, the special edition lectures, this is the pandemic caused by the COVID-19 virus mostly affects our diabetic patients. We are at a high risk of contracting severe complication caused by the infection. The PSD board has taken this opportunity to enhance our knowledge in pursuance of excellence in diabetology during this period. In line with this, we are having the PSD Select and mini case discussions. This is a series of virtual lectures, 1 hour each, to keep our alumni abreast at the latest updates in diabetes. So our objectives, first is to discuss the COVID-19 basics. Second, to discuss the issue associated with diabetes and COVID-19. And lastly, to discuss interesting concerns and cases on people with diabetes. So tonight, let's start our first lecture. Let me call on our first speaker. He is not new to all of us, our PSD Vice President, Danny Baldemore, to talk on diabetes and sleep. Danny?
Thank you, Ate Marcy. Good evening po sa ating lahat. Can you see my slides na? Hello, Ate.
Yes, Dr.
Okay na.
Okay, thank you very much. We would like to thank our partner for this evening, our Warwag Pharma, and also our technical backup or our support from Gets Pharma. So this topic for this evening is, I hope, not to make you fall asleep. Okay? So we'll be talking diabetes and sleep and not much on the COVID because the next topic would talk about COVID mostly. So wala masyado itong kinalaman sa COVID. But to talk about diabetes and sleep, we want to understand the basics of sleep, discuss the role of sleep in diabetes, and be aware of diabetes and sleep apnea in particular, and evaluate and manage sleep disorders. Siguro, most of our patients na diabetic, darating sila, minsan, ang lagi nilang tinatanong, di ba, most common question nila, ano ang bawal o ano yung dapat kainin o ano hindi dapat kainin. And then sometimes they would also complain, hindi sila makatulog. And we will see kung bakit related to sa mga diabetic patients. Now, sleep is a complex behavioral physiologic process. And normally, during the non-REM sleep or yung rapid eye movement, there is decrease in the metabolic rate, the sympathetic nervous system activity, the blood pressure and the heart rate, and increase in the vagal activity. Ang maganda sa sleep because of its restorative activity that affects many metabolic and hormonal processes. It helps the body recharge itself every night. Okay? So the running of the essential processes and contributing to a healthy immune system. It also balances our appetites by regulating levels for the hunger hormones. So hormonal din to, yung ghrelin natin at leptin is affected by sleep. Now, ang sleep, it follows a cyclical pattern known as the sleep architecture. The pattern it follows is of alternate REM or the rapid eye movement and the non-REM or non-rapid eye movement throughout a typical night, repeating every 90 minutes. So, ibig sabihin, after 90 minutes, uulit na naman yung cycle, REM, non-REM. After 90 minutes ulit, yun yung nangyayari. However, your NREM is composed of 75% of our sleep time, and REM is the deepest stage and the most restorative for the body. In the later stages of the non-REM, which is stage 3 and 4, it is also known as the slow wave sleep, and this is most refreshing and restorative. Now, in some journals or books, meron lang 4 cycles of stages of sleep. So you have the stage 1, which is the light transitional sleep, which is drowsiness and the deep begins. At stage 2, it is more stable sleep, in which the chemicals block in the senses, making it difficult to be awakened. And then you have the stage 3, which is the deep sleep, in which the growth hormone is released. And after this, you have the stage 4, or the REM sleep, which is the revitalizer, in which intense dreams occur. So this is a cycle going on every 90 to 120 minutes. Some books would tell the sleep cycle, meron siyang 5 stages. So again, you have the stage 1, which is light sleep. Madali kang magising dyan. Yung stage 2 naman, yung eye movement and brain waves, bumabagal na. And then you have the stage 3, in which the delta waves begin to appear. And at stage 4, hindi ka na masyado magising. And then it follows the REM stage, yung rapid eye movement. So the breathing becomes more rapid and irregular. So dyan na tayo nananaginip na. Okay? At itong 5 cycle na to, makikita natin the total sleep time for the different sleep stages is composed of stage 1, 3, and 4, 30%. Yan. Yung 50% ay nasa stage 2. Yung medyo bumabagal na tayo. And then 20% is already at the REM stage. So maiksi lang yung REM natin. Now, yung REM o yung rapid eye movements, okay, occurs for the first time and recurs every 90 minutes. So bumibilis yung hinga natin dyan, which can become irregular and shallow. Kaya mga pasyente natin na may nag-hypoglycemia, baka akalain natin nag-hypo na sila because of the REM. Okay? Our eyes dart back and forth, so kaya nga rapid eye movement. And also, the limb muscles become more or temporarily paralyzed. Okay? And this is the stage where we drink, and this provides the much needed energy and helps support our daytime performance. So ito yung pag natulog ka ng medyo matagal-tagal, nakakabawi ka, di ba? Unlike yung nagpupuya tayo palagi. And the REM sleep is so important that our brains will often deploy the safety measures. So it's a time check na makita ng katawan natin kung ano pa yung dapat ayusin. Now, these are the different sleep disorders, but I will not go into detail just to show you that we have different types of sleep disorders. So have your insomnias, including your insomnia, narcolepsy, the breathing-related disorders, and the circadian rhythm sleep disorders. Then you have the parasomnias, including the nightmares, sleepwalking, kung meron pa sa inyo yung nangyayari dyan. And then you have the sleep paralysis. Now, what's the connection of sleep and diabetes? So this, the CDC tells us that 35% of Americans report getting less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. So sa inyo po ba, ilang oras kayong natutulog? Okay, so the recommended is 7 to 9 hours. So people who don't get enough sleep are prone to a slew of health problems, including type 2 diabetes. And in the study published in Lancet, yung first trial na ginawa nila in 1999, ang tinignan nila yung healthy young people without, wala pang mga sakit na may diabetes. So they come to the laboratory for a week, and then the sleep was restricted to just 4 hours to 6 nights in a row. Okay, so inigsian yung tulog nila, and then they found out that after a week of short sleep, their glucose metabolism looked like that of the old men. In another study in 2008, from the Proceeding of the National Academy of Sciences, they sought to uncover the influence of deep sleep on the risk of diabetes. So tinignan nila yung mga volunteers. So they found out that the metabolic changes that increase the risk of diabetes, and tells us that it's not just how much sleep that matters, but you need a good quality of sleep. So hindi lang yung haba, pati yung quality of sleep. Kasi baka pag tinotar natin, putol-putol naman kahit mahaba siya. Now, according to diabetes care, some people with sleep problems, yung difficulty falling or staying asleep, or sleeping fewer than 5 to 6 hours a night, or more than 8 to 9 hours are more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than sound sleepers. So, importante pala yung nandun ka sa pagitan ng mga 7 to 9 hours. So, pag lumagpas ka, hindi maganda. Pag maigsi, hindi rin maganda. Those who report poor sleep quality have higher A1Cs. So, sleeping too little or at the wrong times could somehow make the clock malfunction and perhaps disrupt the biological schedules that are synchronized to the clock, such as the insulin secretion. So the biological clocks evolved to optimize the energy handling with respect to the rotation of the Earth. So sumusunod tayo dyan. Kaya kung yung body clock natin, kung pupunta ka o magbabiyahe ka, katulad ni Dr. Rene, palipat-lipat ng ibang bansa. So nagbabago-bago yung body clock niya. And it has been observed that the rhythmic variation in glucose-stimulated insulin secretion. Now, eating or sleeping at the wrong times also could upset the harmony between the body clocks and the behavior. Yung lighting din. Light is believed to set the clock in the brain, which is the body's standard time. Okay? Kaya yung iba sa atin, pag nakabukas ang ilaw, nahihirapan matulog. So what's the link between sleep and diabetes? So here are the 4 ways on how lack of sleep can increase the likelihood of getting diabetes. About insulin level imbalance. So pagka less ang sleep mo, less insulin release to the body, and over time, there will be insulin resistance. Okay? Now, if there is also increased appetite, pag konti ang sleep mo, it increases appetite, and this can cause food craving, especially junk foods or carbohydrates and sugary foods. Okay, pag maiksi, di ba, ang gagawin natin, kakain tayo kasi pag kumakain tayo, nai-induce niya yung sleep natin, but only to find out that it would lead to imbalances in the hormones levels and thus increase our weight also. If there is reduced physical exercise like fatigue, it is an expected outcome, but it can also keep us back from exercising. So lack of exercise means the level of weight and the blood sugar controls are also impaired. And lastly, the spiral of anxiety. If there is continued sleep deprivation, it would impact on the emotional health negatively, from anxiety to depression. Kaya pag yung iba nade-depress, humahaba, gusto nila matulog ng matulog. Yung iba naman, pag anxious, maigsi yung tulog, and then later on, it could lead to getting diabetes. Your stress hormones are like your cortisols are also increased, which make us stay more awake. Now, in a study in diabetes care in 2003, these are the findings from the Sleep Heart Health Study, looking at diabetes and sleep disturbances. So just to show you the result, that the data suggests that diabetes is associated with periodic breathing, which is a respiratory abnormality, associated with abnormalities in the central control of ventilation. Some sleep disturbances may result from diabetes through the deleterious effects of diabetes on the central control of respiration. Meron din tinatawag na the high prevalence of sleep disordered breathing in diabetes, okay, SDB. Although largely explained by obesity and other confounders, this would also lead as a risk factor for CVD in patients with diabetes. Now, there are multiple factors that may contribute to insomnia. Okay, ito yung iba, yung may mga peripheral neuropathy na, merong restless leg syndrome, periodic limb movements, or rapid changes in the blood glucose during night, which can lead to hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia episodes, as well as nocturia and associated depression. So again, remember, di ba, darating yung pasyente, napupuyat, hindi sila makatulog. Yung pala, if you're going to ask them, yung nocturia ang problema, ihi sila ng ihi, kaya sila napupuyat. Also, diabetes can itself has multiple impacts on the central nervous system, altering the neurobehavioral and neurotransmitter functioning and the autonomic function. Okay? And also, it would affect the endocrine function as well. Now, epidemiological studies will suggest that the higher risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes in patients na shorter sleep duration, kung less than 5 to 6 hours a night ka lang natutulog, at risk ka for obesity and diabetes. Now, yung sobra din sa tulog, more than 9 hours and poor sleep quality, at risk ka sa obesity. So these are the categories of sleep disturbances. So alteration in the sleep duration, the chronic sleep restriction and excessive sleep. Meron ding alteration in the sleep architecture as what we have told you earlier. At saka yung sleep fragmentation, putol-putol. Tayong mga doktor, ganun, di ba? Minsan gigisingin ka, tapos mamaya makatulog ka na, tatawagan ka na naman ulit. So later on, baka mataas talaga ang chance natin na magkakaroon din tayo ng diabetes. Yung mga shift workers natin because of the alteration in the circadian rhythm. Okay? And OSA or obstructive sleep apnea. Now, your difficulty initiating sleep would increase the risk of type 2 diabetes by 55%. So napakataas, di ba? Now, yung difficulty maintaining sleep would increase the risk by 74%. So ibig sabihin, nadagdagan na yung mga risk factors. So hindi lang lahi, hindi lang Asian, pati pala yung pagtulog, it would be a risk factors. Now, I'll just going to show you some studies and yung mga conclusion na lang on the sleep duration and the sleep qualities, which is associated with alteration of glucose homeostasis. So in this one study by Byberg, the study tells us that the shorter sleep duration was mainly associated with later alteration in glucose homeostasis. Ngayon, yung poorer sleep quality was mainly associated with earlier alteration in glucose homeostasis. Thus, adopting healthy sleep habits may benefit glucose metabolism in healthy population. Now, in another study looking at the A1C level, this is a Japanese study in which they look at the association between sleep duration and A1C level. They showed that a U-shaped association with sleep duration yung A1C level. So they suggest that there may be an appropriate range of sleep duration in individuals with glucose tolerance disorders. So in another study, sa Korea naman to, they look at the sleep duration on the risk of diabetes. And ito, sa slide na to, makikita natin yung sleep duration, no? So between 6 to 7 hours with regards to the HOMA-IR, yung measure of insulin resistance. Nakita nila that ang mga pasyente na nasa 7 hours of sleep o 4 to 6 hours, maganda ang level of HOMA-IR. If you go higher, yung sleep mo, tumataas ang level of insulin resistance. Likewise, if you go lower than 6 hours, the patient are more of insulin resistance. Okay? So yan yung isang findings nila with regards to the sleep duration. Now, Chinese din, tignan natin, meron din silang ginawang study, association between napping and nighttime sleep duration with the impairment of glucose regulation, insulin resistant, and glycated A1C. Now, they found out that in patients na without diabetes who nap, they have a higher A1C and insulin resistance than those with shorter nighttime sleep durations, okay? Who also had an increased A1C. Now, how about the quantity and quality of sleep? So in another study in diabetes care also, looking at the association of sleep disturbances in the incidence. They found out quantity and quality of sleep consistently and significantly predict the risk of development of type 2 diabetes. Okay? So baka isa to din sa dapat natin tignan. Bakit hindi natin makontrol ang blood sugar ng mga pasyente natin? Yung sleep. Now, what's the mechanism of obesity and glycemic dysregulation with sleep disturbance? So, it is associated with the neuroendocrine control of appetite. So, ito na yung tanong ko kanina, di ba? One of the important mechanism linking weight gain and sleep deprivation is likely to the hyperactivity of the orexin system. When I was making this lecture, I came across the orexin system. Hindi ko po ito, honestly, hindi ko siya alam. Okay? Yung inaral ko, ko lang siya natutunan. So, just want to share you about the orexin. The orexin or the hypocretin neurons are localized in the perifornical area of the lateral hypothalamus. Okay, nandito siya sa brain. And these are necessary for the maintenance of the waking and behavioral arousal. Okay, so the absence or reduction of the orexin peptide or receptors may result in narcolepsy and cataplexy. So makikita natin siya, it interacts with the other hormones, yung dopamine, yung serotonin, and your norepinephrine. So very important pala ang orexin. So it has various roles including regulation of the autonomic system, the endocrine function, food intake, appetite, wakefulness, and sleep. So it is present in wide range of organs outside the CNS also, yung mga receptors. Kaya merong mga gamot that acts on the receptors of orexins. Okay? Pero hindi na natin yung i-discuss. Baka abutin talaga tayo ng skip dito. Okay? So orexin peptides can result in pathological disorders such as late onset obesity, impaired insulin sensitivity, hyperinsulinemia, and disturbances in the gut function. So apektado din ang bituka, kaya siguro nagkakaroon ng hunger yung mga pasyente natin. Now, ito po, this is also yung melatonin and orexin systems for regulation of the sleep metabolism under the 24-hour light, dark, and cycle. So, isa-isayin natin ha. So, I would like you to follow me. Itong SCN, dito muna tayo. Ito, sa light. Okay? Sa light and dark. So, light and dark affects our system. So, it stimulates the brain through the SCN or the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So, with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, it would stimulate the hormone or the receptors in your paraventricular hypothalamic nucleus. Okay, bababa yan at mag-interact sa spinal cord dahil nandyan ang ating intermediolateral nucleus. Ngayon, itong would traverse dito sa ating may cervical spine. Nandyan naman yung ating cervical ganglia. Siguro kaya pala kapag sa mga pelikula, di ba, pag pinukpok ka sa leeg, tulog ka agad. So baka ito pala yun. Okay? Now, with this, it would stimulate your pineal gland. Thus, pag na-stimulate na yung pineal gland, it would release your melatonin. So during dark hours, you have different receptors of your melatonin, and this would regulate or responsible for the regulation of your circadian rhythm, your energy balance, and insulin secretion and action. Okay? So yan yung melatonin. Now, with the light and dark again, stimulating your SCN or your suprachiasmatic nucleus, dito naman sa isang side ng brain natin, nandito na yung ating orexin. Okay? Nandyan yung perifornical or the lateral hypothalamic area. So, andyan yung ating, sundan niyo po yung arrow, nandito na po tayo sa orexin system. So again, during wakefulness, so maliwanag na, yung orexin naman na ang nag-a-act. So again, you have different receptors. And this orexin would be responsible for the regulation of your wakefulness, your food intake, and your energy and glucose metabolism. Okay? So I hope naintindihan din natin na ito pala, melatonin at orexin ay isa sa mga importante natin malaman. Okay? We'll talk more about melatonin in a while. So, your orexin is overactive during sleep deprivation. Okay? Which, along with the overactivity of sympathetic nervous systems, would lead to overfeeding. Nevertheless, the precise mechanisms are not yet fully understood. So, furthermore, there is increase in the circulating level of ghrelin, which is a hunger-promoting hormone, as well as decrease in leptin, which is a satiety factor. So, nagkakaroon itong mechanism na to, interaction. Now, tapos na po tayo doon. Let's go to sleep apnea. Yung sleep apnea naman are more significant in persons with diabetes and correlate with obesity. Kaya these have strong association which exists between obesity, IGT, insulin resistant, and the SDB or your sleep disordered breathing. And the most common type, your SDB, is your OSA or your obstructive sleep apnea. Meron ding central type apnea and the periodic breathing, which are all associated also with autonomic diabetic neuropathy. Ano ba yung OSA? So, during sleep, ito yung normal. So, yung pasok ng hangin sa ilong at saka sa bibig will go to your lungs through your airways. That's the normal. But in patients with obstructive sleep apnea, there is collapse of the upper airway, okay, leading to the cessation of the airflow. Okay, so hindi siya makapasok, thus leading to hypoxia that would lead to frequent arousal, causing sleep fragmentation and symptoms of excessive daytime sleepiness. So sa umaga, inaantok ka kasi hindi ka nakatulog ng maayos. Okay? Yan yun. There is again collapse of the upper airway leading to cessation of the airflow. What are the common symptoms? So makikita natin yung mga pasyente natin, masakit ang ulo pagka umaga. Yan, inaantok sila. There is poor concentration and irritability kasi kulang sa tulog. And sometimes, falling asleep during routine activities. Sa gabi naman, siya, naghihilik, loud persistent snoring. You can witness pauses in breathing. So merong tinatawag na sleep apnea of more than 10 seconds. So sometimes choking or gasping for air, restless sleep, pabaling-baling, and frequent visit to the bathroom. So OSA itself is again linked to increases of your negative health outcomes. Okay, so nagkakaroon ng insulin resistance, hypertension, and your CVD. It is because of the mechanism of hypoxia and oxidative stress, as well as increased inflammatory markers like your interleukin-6, sympathetic overactivity, and dysregulation of your hepatic lipid metabolism. Now, how do you evaluate yung sleep disorders? So the assessment, assess the sleep quality, the sleep disorders, and sleep hygiene is paramount to patients, especially with diabetes. So in the latest ADA guidelines in 2017, meron na silang dinagdag na section recommending the assessment of sleep pattern and duration. Okay? Siguro baka wala pa tayong masyadong study on this, okay? So, we should assess the sleep pattern and duration as part of the comprehensive medical evaluation in patients with diabetes. Okay, and the relationship between sleep and glycemic control. So baka maganda tignan natin to ha. Yung mga matataas yung A1C natin, baka may problema talaga sila sa pagtulog. O baka yung controlled ang sugar, maganda ang sleep nila. Now, how do you assess? You need a detailed history, a careful examination. Maganda rin, merong mga laboratory investigation. Okay? So, kung meron tayong food diary, maganda rin, paggawa natin sila ng sleep diary during the past 2 weeks. Okay? This is, the patient can provide a detailed assessment of the sleep pattern. Okay? Now, ano ba yung ilalagay sa history? Yung difficulty or staying asleep, if they had excessively sleepy during the day, yung history of snoring as told by the spouse or family members. Siyempre, hindi mo naman alam kung naghihilig ka, di ba? O kaya minsan, naghihilig ka nga, bigla ka nagigising. So, naghihilig ka pala. So, sila yung magsasabi kung naghihilig ka. And then, history of apneic episodes, history of uncomfortable sensations in the legs, okay, in the evening that are relieved by movement. There is one test. Meron tayong ISD member, if you know her, si Doktora from sa may South, sa may Mindanao. Wala na po siya ngayon dito sa atin. Nag-migrate na siya sa Amerika. And she is working sa isang clinic. Ito yung trabaho niya sa sleep. Okay? So you can use your polysomnography, which is may mga kinakabit na mga sensors sa mga pasyente. Tapos looking at the breathing pattern. Okay? So polysomnogram yung kailangan. Ha? So sa mga big centers like St. Luke's, I think they also have it. Now, how do you manage sleep? Ito ba yung pinapagawa natin o ginagawa natin dati, di ba? Magbilang ka ng sheep. Okay? So nakakailang libo ka ng sheep, hindi ka pa rin naantok. Now, ganito rin ba ang ginagawa ng mga sheep kapag hindi sila makatulog? Nagbibilang sila ng tumatalon na tao. So, the management of sleep disorders is highly rewarding. So, kapag nabigyan natin ng gamot yung mga pasyente, tapos nakatulog sila, di ba tuwan-tuwa rin sila. At tayo din siguro, kapag nakainom tayo ng mga sleeping aids, masarap din ang gising natin. Successful management of sleep disorders or FEN requires a multifaceted approach. Including relief of symptoms and treatment of the common comorbid conditions. Behavioral approaches are very important in the management of insomnia. Okay? So which includes good adherence to sleep hygiene, sleep restriction, cognitive behavioral therapy, and relaxation therapy. Kailangan nagpapausok tayo para makatulog tayo, katulad ng mga lavender o kung ano pa ang iba. These are just 10 tips to better sleep. Pero yung sa iba naman, makita natin, meron silang kinakabit sa ilong to make them breathe better. So, they sleep better. Ito yung mga nasal congestion o nasal strips para makatulog silang maayos. Or, pwede rin yung mga gadgets to breathe more, snore less, mga kinakabit sa ilong. Okay? Meron ding mouth guard, okay, to stop snoring. This is doctor sleep. So it's made of a pliable plastic na ilalagay sa bibig. Okay? So makakatulog ka na niya kasi yung tongue mo hindi bumababa o hindi nagkakaroon ng obstruction. Ngayon, meron din tinatawag na positional device, okay, which prevents you from rolling into your back. So, kasi pag nakahiga ka, babagsak, magkakaroon ng obstruction. So ang gadget na ito, nakatagilid ka lang para hindi magkaroon ng obstruction. So, constant side sleeping position. Okay? Meron pang isa. This is another positional device that you can actually work it. Tapos, bigla yan magbabibrate kapag nahiga ka ng flat. And increases in intensity of the vibration until you change your position. Okay? Now, how about melatonin? Nakainom na din po ba kayo nitong melatonin? Siguro, kapag hindi makatulog yung pasyente natin, ito yung kadalasan na ibibigay na natin kasi it's safe. Okay? So does it work? So your hormone melatonin plays a role in the natural sleep-wake cycle. Okay? Kaya nga sabi natin kanina, yung melatonin kapartner ng orexin. The natural levels of your melatonin are highest at night. So, some research would suggest that melatonin supplements might be helpful in treating sleep disorders, such as delayed sleep phase and providing some relief from insomnia and jet lag. So, the recommended dose is 0.5 milligram up to 3 milligram, which are adequate to promote sleep or treat jet lag. Okay? So when you use melatonin at higher doses, it tends to increase daytime sleepiness. So merong 5 milligram available, also merong 10 milligram available. So when do you give it to your patients? Ang recommended nila, at least 2 hours bago matulog. Okay? Ngayon kung nagbabiyahe ka naman, gusto mo maayos yung pattern ng sleep mo, you can take it also 2 hours sa biyahe. Okay? So that is your melatonin. So these are some do's and don'ts for persons with diabetes. You can teach this or you can make a poster of this siguro nga no, para sa mga pasyente natin. Or para sa atin mismo, do establish a regular bedtime and rise time. Do exercise in the late afternoon or early evening kasi mas maganda dyan, tumataas yung ating hormones. Do establish a comfortable sleep environment. Sleep in a dark and quiet area with temperature and humidity control. Kaya pag nasa mga hotel tayo, ang sarap din ng tulog natin, di ba? So we can also listen to soft music o kaya matulog, maligo ka muna, or wash your feet. Kaya mga nagpapaspa sa gabi, di ba? Wala masyadong nagpapaspa sa umaga kasi nare-relax ka sa gabi. And then, ito very important, no? Putting cell phones in silent or off mode. Now, yung mga don'ts naman, huwag tayong matulog sa tanghali. Don't take too much caffeine and nicotine, especially sa gabi na. Don't drink alcohol before bedtime. Sleep too hungry o kaya yung sobrang busog din. O kaya mga spicy foods, iwasan natin. And then, huwag na tayo din masyadong manood ng mga Netflix, o kaya phone calls, and trying too hard to fall asleep. Kapag hindi ka pa inaantok, huwag ka mahiga. Now, these are the associated comorbidities contributing to poor sleep in persons with diabetes and how to rectify them. So if there is fluctuation in blood sugar, then avoid hypoglycemia and optimize the blood sugar control. Kung may OSA na, syempre weight loss, and eventually, you can use a CPAP or kung hindi talaga, surgery is also an option. Pagka meron mga restless leg syndrome, then you identify the different problems and then you can give drugs also like benzodiazepines and gabapentins. Kung may neuropathy, you can use analgesic and antidepressants like your tricyclics and also your gabapentins. Okay? Also, siguro baka pwede din gamitin yung mga for pain, mga thioctic acid. Ewan ko lang kung may mga studies din sila. Okay? So, lastly, in summary, so type 2 diabetes and sleep disorders are common problems that often coexist. There is a high prevalence of sleep disorders in people with type 2 diabetes, pero baka hindi lang natin napapansin. So this also contributes to the detriment on their health, mood, and quality of life. Conversely, sleep disorders, including your OSA, may predispose to higher risk of metabolic disorders, including type 2 diabetes. And all patients with type 2 diabetes should be screened for sleep disorders as part of the routine clinical practice and treated appropriately. So kung hindi naman tayo makapagbilang ng ng sheep, so pwede rin siguro tayo, kung tayo ay nabobor na, mag-talk tayo sa shepherd. Okay? So alam niyo na ibig sabihin niya. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention and greet you in advance. Okay, so thank you so much. Go back to you, Dr. Marcy.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Danny, for that enlightening lecture that keep us awake. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is none other than our PSD board, Dr. Jamie Agra. She will talk on diabetes and mental health. Jamie, take it away. Jamie.
Okay. Now, my task is to talk about kung kanina diabetes and sleep. Now, it will be diabetes and mental health. The learning outcome for this talk will be, we will become cognizant between the relationship of diabetes and depression. We will discuss the screening instrument to differentiate mental illness from diabetes and major depressive disorder. We will become familiar with the treatment option for diabetic patients affected with mental health. I will also going to map the COVID-19 specific worries and overall psychosocial health among people with diabetes in the initial phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll explore also the characteristic of diabetes and high level of worries related to COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, discuss on the stress management during this COVID-19 pandemic. The key message for this topic will be, we all know that diabetes is a complex and demanding condition which potentially debilitating complication. There are research suggesting that diabetes double the risk of depression compared to those without diabetes. Evidence suggests that 42% of people with type 1 DM and 36% for people with type 2 DM will experience elevated diabetes distress. And people living with diabetes and depressive disorder are at increased risk for earlier all-cause mortality compared to living with diabetes without history of depression. Therefore, the chance of developing depression also increases if diabetes complication worsen. In this figure, you will see an interplay wherein an individual with serious mental illness, particularly those with depressive symptoms, and people with diabetes, share reciprocal susceptibility and high degree of comorbidity, like increased risk of suicide and post-psychotic depression. The mechanism behind this relationship are multifactorial, as you can see here, and complicated and presently only partially understood. There are some evidence that show that the treatment for mental health disorder may actually increase the risk of diabetes, particularly when treated with the second and third generation antipsychotic agent. Mental illness increases the risk of diabetes and diabetes complication. Why kaya? Because there are seen that non-adherence to medication and self-care due to functional impairment, the risk of complication, healthcare costs, and risk of early mortality. With this, major depressive disorder increases the risk of type 2 diabetes by 60%. The psychological effect of diabetes among adults, as we know that diabetes is a demanding chronic disease for both individual who has diabetes, but also to their families. There are a large number associated for this, including being newly diagnosed for diabetes, having diabetes distress impairing the self-management, the psychological insulin resistance, the fear of hypoglycemia is also included here. Thus, the range of psychiatric disorder rises and distinguishes between diabetes distress, major depressive disorder, and the presence of depressive symptoms are important. Depressive symptoms are present in people with diabetes by 30%, assessed by the Diabetes in Canada in 2018. They state that major depressive disorder is also known as clinical depression, which occur in 10% of people with type 2 diabetes, which is double the rate in general population. Grabe, mas mataas pa sa walang diabetes. And the comorbid depression worsen clinical outcome in type 2 diabetes, as they explain, possibly secondary to the lower level of physical illness, fitness, and reduced medication adherence. So what is diabetes distress? Diabetes distress is that despondency and emotional turmoil specifically related to caring for diabetes, the need for monitoring, treatment, preoccupation with complication, and the effect of various relationships. So in short, it refers to the negative emotion and burdens of self-management related to living with diabetes. And this diabetes distress comprises 4 interconnected domains that include emotional burden of living with diabetes, the stress associated with diabetes self-management regimen. It can be stress associated with social relationship and stress associated with patient-provider relationship. And all of these can be related to a poorer diabetes outcome. Comparing the two, with the diabetes distress and major depressive disorder, diabetes distress is not classified as mental health condition. It responds to a pressure of living with demanding long-term condition. They can be typically be identified and managed by member of diabetes team. So, atin lang, kaya na natin to. While depression, it is classified as mental health condition that requires a referral to mental health services. And treating depression need antidepressant medication for treatment. There are several assessment instruments to differentiate diabetes distress and major depressive disorder. When specifically we want to know about diabetes distress, there is an assessment tools like diabetes distress scale, which is a self-report using rating score from 1 to 6 based on the feeling and experience over the past week. It features again the patient burden subscale, physician-related distress, the regimen-related distress, or the diabetes-related interpersonal distress. While the major depressive disorder, the assessment tool can be used is what we call the PHQ-9 or the Patient Health Questionnaire for Depression. It is also a self-report using rating from 0 to 3 based on the feeling and experience over the past 2 weeks that features vegetative symptoms, emotional symptoms, behavioral symptoms, and cognitive symptoms of the patient. The assessment tool, like the DDS, a 17-item scale, first published in 2005. It captures, again, 4 critical dimensions I have mentioned before: emotional, regimen distress, interpersonal, and physician distress. This is used widely around the world as a clinical instrument for opening conversation with one's patient, as well as the critical outcome measure in numerous studies. It can now be completed and scored online at a website known as diabetesdistress.org. While the PHQ-9 is a multiple purpose instrument for screening, diagnosing, monitoring, and measuring the severity of depression. It's a brief 9-item cycle that include only depression-related items. They can be used to make tentative diagnosis of depression and to monitor depression severity and response to treatment in the past 2 weeks. Here, I will going to show you how a diabetes distress scales look like. In diabetic distress scale, it again a 17 yield total diabetes scale score plus 4 subscale, yung emotional, interpersonal, regiment, and physician distress score, each addressing different kinds of distress. To score, you simply sum the patient responses to appropriate item and divide by the number of items in the scale. Here is an example of a diabetic distress scale, wherein this form being sent to the patient to answer, and they encircle what they feel for each item question being answered. So yan, ang 17 items siya. Then, after that, they will be added up for a total of 17, and per subscale, by 5 or depende sa item. With regard to emotional burden, it will be scored in the item number 1, 3, 8, 11, and 14. So there are 5 divided by 5, and the rest follows. How is being interpreted? If the score is 3 or higher, then the patient can be diagnosed with a moderate distress, diabetes distress, as a level of distress for worthy of clinical attention. How about the PHQ? This is how the PHQ form look like, wherein and over for the past 2 weeks, they have to answer the following items again and encircle each item that meet with their answers. Yeah. Then PHCare is a multi-purpose instrument for screening and diagnosing and monitoring measurement the severity of depression. They are graded as follows. From 5 to 9 is a minimal symptom that only needs support, educate, to call, keep worse, and return in 1 month. But with regard if the score is 10 to 20 and above, they need a support, watchful waiting, and antidepressant or psychotherapy for this patient treatment. How about screening for the depressive and anxious symptom in patient with diabetes? If the purpose is diabetes specific, the screening tool to be used could be the DDS, as been discussed a while ago, and the PAGE scale, which is the problem area in diabetes. And if you want the purpose for the quality of life, you can use the WHO-5 screening tools. For the depression and anxiety, again, we had the PHQ-9, the HADS or the Hospital Anxiety and Depression Scale, and the BDI or the Beck Depression Inventory. With regard to PAGE or the problem area in diabetes scale, it's a simple one-page questionnaire. It contains 20 items that take approximately 5 minutes to complete. It measures diabetes-related emotional distress, correlate with the measure of related concept, as well as predict the future blood glucose control of the patient. This scale has been proven to be sensitive to detect changes over time following educational and therapeutic intervention. In a clinical setting, The PAID can be administered routinely and or ad hoc as a diagnostic tool. The scale has a high acceptability and scientific validity as evident by more than 60 scientific paper and scientific research abstract. How they are being scored. Each question has 5 possible answers with a value of from 0 to 4, wherein 0 representing no problem, the 4 as a serious problem. The score are added up and multiplied by 1.25, generating a total score between 0 to 100. If the score is 40 or higher, maybe at that level, emotional burnout and warrant special attention. If the patient score of this patient drop 10 to 15 points in response to educational and in medical intervention, and those having extremely low score of 0 to 10 combined with poor glycemic control may be indicative for denial. So marami tayong patient na ganyan. How this one is the figure of another common diabetic specific concern, which we call the belief underlying psychological insulin resistance. This one is very common reaction, particularly among individuals with type 2 DM who have been previously successfully managed with non-glucose lowering agent. But later on, the need for an insulin is needed. They are thinking that perception of worsening illness severity with addition of insulin requiring of insulin represent personal failure to management of illness. As you go along, this is a typical example of the myth and misconception about insulin treatment. Another common diabetes-specific concern is the fear of hypoglycemia. This fear of hypoglycemia can be addressed by us as doctor by regardless the patient is on insulin or oral glucose lowering agent, we have to teach our patient what to watch out in case they are having started on treatment for diabetes. The precaution of timing and of taking the medication, what to eat, and what to observe during the treatment of hyperglycemia. With regard to the distress and depression, there are treatment options that can be done. It can be a cognitive behavioral therapy or other type of psychotherapy and antidepressant medication. For CBT, it can be applied to as diabetes treatment. They are differentiated by as follows. With the cognitive component, it composed of recording to keeping in identifying distressing autonomic thought, understanding the link between thoughts and feeling, learning the common thinking error that mediate distress, and analyzing negative thought and promoting more functional ones. While the behavioral component, there are strategies to help get the person moving, scheduling pleasant and meaningful events wherein learning become assertive and effective in communication skill. We have to focus on the feeling of mastery and accomplishment together with learning how to solve the problem and expose to a new experiences. Here are some of the situations that warrant referral for person with diabetes to a mental health provider for evaluation and treatment. If our patient, if self-care remains impaired in a person with diabetes distress after tailored diabetes education. So nagawa na natin lahat, hindi pa rin sumusunod, baka may ibang psychological problem yung ating patient. If the person has positive screen on validated screening tools for depressive symptoms, in the presence of symptoms and suspicious of disorder in eating behavior or eating disorder or disrupted pattern of eating. If mentioned, pwede rin dyan yung kay Dr. Dan na lecture na may sleep deprivation yung patient. Di ba pag merong mga psychotic patient, may mga problema yan sa mga sleep. If intentional omission of insulin or oral medication to cause weight loss is identified, if the person has positive screen for anxiety and fear of hypoglycemia, those with serious mental illness, if in youth and families with behavioral self-care difficulties, repeated hospitalization for diabetic ketoacidosis and significant distress, a person screened with positive cognitive impairment, declining impaired ability to perform diabetes self-care behavior, and those before undergoing bariatric surgery and after assessment revealed ongoing need for adjustment support. Here are some of the selected measures for evaluation of psychosocial contract in clinical settings. As you can see here, for diabetes-related distress, we have the PAID, the DDS, the PAID for the pediatric, the PAID for the teen version, and the PAID for the patient-related version. You can see here that one of our speakers in last ISDCon, Dr. Polonsky, is part who have given the citation about this psychological instrument assessment. Another, if for anxiety, there are several instrument tools can be used, such as the CTITE, the BI, the HFS-1, and the CH. These are all used for patients with type 1 and those with youth and adult type 1 diabetes. And with about the adherence to self-care, we have the summary of the diabetes self-care activities, the ARMSD, and the barrier to a diabetes adherence. So maraming tools, hindi lang talaga yung PAID and DDS. Depende kung ano yung problem ng patient. Pero what is commonly used is the DDS and the PAID. Again, diabetic distress should be routinely monitored using patient-appropriate validated measure. If diabetic distress is identified, the person should be referred for diabetes education to address area of diabetes self-care that are most relevant to the patient and have the most impact on diabetes outcome. People whose self-care remain impaired after tailored diabetes education should be referred to their care team to a behavioral health provider for evaluation and treatment. Remember, as we diabetologists, we are mentor and teach more on about how to do the diabetes education. So, mga patient natin na magaling mag-educate ng patient, this diabetes distress can be not seen in all her patients. With regard to depression, referral for treatment of diabetes should be made to mental health provider with the experience using cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, and other evidence-based treatment approaches in conjunction with the collaborative care with the patient diabetes treatment team. There are several recommendations for treating diabetes and mental health. Those individuals with diabetes should be regularly screened for diabetes-related psychological distress. And the plan and psychiatric disorder by validated self-report questionnaire or clinical interview. The plan for self-harm should be asked about regularly as well. A second recommendation that following the group of people with diabetes should be referred to specialized mental health care. With the following significant distress related to diabetes management, persistent fear of hypoglycemia, those with psychological insulin resistance, and psychiatric disorder. A collaborative care by interpersonal teams should be provided for individuals with diabetes and depression. Why? To improve depressive symptoms, to become adherent to antidepressant and non-anti-hyperglycemic medication to achieve glycemic control. The psychosocial intervention should be integrated into diabetes care plan, including intervention, stress management strategies, coping skill training, involving the family, and case management. Antidepressant medication should be used to treat acute depression in people with diabetes and for maintenance treatment to prevent recurrence of depression. CBT or the cognitive behavioral therapy can be used to treat depression in individuals with depression alone or in combination with antidepressant medication. Because of the risk of adverse metabolic effect of many antipsychotic medication, especially the atypical second and third generation, regular metabolic monitoring should be performed in people with or without diabetes who are treated with this medication. Because it has been recently, there have been concern that antidepressant may adversely affect the glucose metabolism, not least because some antidepressants induce significant weight gain, which may contribute to insulin resistance. Children and adolescents with diabetes should be screened at diagnosis for major depressive disorder. Regular for psychosocial difficulties and family stress or mental health disorder. These individuals may be part of the pediatric diabetes healthcare team or enlisted by referrals. Individuals and family educational intervention should be included to address the stress and diabetes-related conflict when indicated. Kasi di ba nga, sinabi natin, diabetes is a family affair. So, kung ang may diabetes, usually young, dapat lahat kasali with regard to the management ng food, yung activities ng bata, dapat kasama ang buong pamilya. An adolescent with type 1 diabetes should be regularly screened using non-judgmental questions about weight, body image concern, dieting, binge eating, and insulin omission for weight loss. After this slide, I will show you one case scenario. This is a scenario wherein the chief complaint was suboptimal management of her DM2 and concern over the recent suggestion that she was experiencing depression due to chronic condition, adamantly denied being depressed, and want his medical record not to be diagnosed, not to be included, and nor want any treatment for depression nor counseling. As to the patient profile, this was a 63-year-old Latina female, a registered nurse, diabetes for 15 years, with current medication of metformin 500 milligrams twice a day for the last 5 years, with a comorbid problem such as hypertension, which was on a atenolol 12 milligrams once a day, and hypercholesterolemia on simvastatin 20 milligrams at bedtime. With regard to the pertinent PE and lab, the patient was 180 pounds, about 81.6 kilograms, with a height of 5 feet and 1/2 inch, with a BMI of 33.6 kilogram per millimeter square with unremarkable physical examination as well as normal neuro assessment, but the psych is oriented time-free and denies depression and anxiety. For the laboratory pertinent, as the FBS was 156, the A1C was 8.1%. The diagnosis then was DM2 uncontrolled obesity due to the BMI of 33.6 and controlled hypertension with atenolol and dyslipidemia controlled with simvastatin. This patient was being diagnosed to have a diabetes distress with a DDS score of equals to 3. More on the subscale of emotional distress. Here you can see that during the interview at the beginning of the clinic encounter, she felt that having DM2 was difficult as she had to plan her meal and watch her food intake and wait all the time, which interfere with the family and work celebration. What are the management plan done to this patient? The metformin was titrated to 1 gram twice a day, advised for walking program 10 minutes per day, continue the atenolol and simvastatin, and referral to dietitian for medical nutrition therapy with emphasis on the weight loss and diabetes management, plus a referral to diabetes support group. And on follow-up assessment after 4 weeks, the DM2 more in control, the diabetes distress improved per statement that the patient come up on follow-up, smiling, report feeling improved and less anxious. So the utilization of DDS identified this patient was not depressed, only distressed, and did not require psychotherapy and psychotherapeutic. What about the mental health psychosocial consideration during the COVID-19 outbreak? We all know that it was January 2020, the WHO declared the outbreak of the new coronavirus diseases and made the COVID-19 to be a public health emergency of international concern. And WHO stated then that this high risk of COVID-19 spreading to other countries around the world and marked this disease as pandemic last March 2020 at the start of our lockdown last March 15. In this figure, you can see the intricate psychosocial relationship between the disease, healthcare provider, and the government and employees and population, with the stigma corona positive. Similarly, like the SARS-CoV 2003 outbreak, the COVID-19 outbreak also give rise to a stigmatizing factor like the fear of isolation, racism, discrimination, and marginalization with all these social and economic ramifications. This stigmatized community tend to seek medical care late and hide important medical history, particularly of travel. Diba usually yan yung dinedenay ng mga pasyente natin sa triad, wherein this behavior turn to increase the risk of community transmission. WHO has also issued specified psychosocial consideration for cutting away the growing stigma of COVID-19. So let us be not infodemic, meaning excessive amount of information about problem that is typically unreliable, spread rapidly, and make the solution more difficult to achieve. Here is one journal done in diabetic medicine done in May 2020 in Denmark, wherein a research for educational and psychological aspect for diabetes and COVID-19 pandemic in people with diabetes. What they state that what characterized people with high level of COVID-19 related worries. In this paper, it includes 1,396 diabetes participants. Through invitation containing a link on the online questionnaire and written informed consent were sent to all members of the user in the panel via email. It highlights a high prevalence of worries among people with diabetes during the COVID-19 pandemic, related to being part of the high-risk group, as well as the several other significant worries due to diabetes. And this questionnaire was a generic mental health question developed as part of the larger Danish data collection initiative, with the title Standing Together at a Distance, How Danes Are Living with the Corona Crisis. This study had shown a high prevalence of diabetes-specific worries related to COVID-19, especially fear of being overly affected by the virus, labeling people with diabetes as a high-risk group, and inability to manage diabetes if infected. Result also had shown a logistic regression, shown that being female, having type 1 DM, diabetes complication, and diabetes distress, feeling isolated and lonely, and having changed diabetes behavior were associated with being more worried about COVID-19 and diabetes. With this COVID-19 outbreak, we should not refer people with the disease as COVID-19 cases, victim, COVID-19 families, or the disease, but rather, they are people who have COVID-19, people who are being treated for COVID-19, or people who are recovering from COVID-19. Remember that after recovering from COVID-19, their life will go on with their job, families, and loved ones, and it is important to separate person from having an identity defined by the COVID-19 in order to reduce the stigma. How can we manage the stress during this pandemic and COVID-19? We have to minimize watching, reading, or listening to news about COVID-19 that can cause you to feel anxious and distressed. Seek only information from trusted sources, and mainly so you can take practical steps to prepare your plan and protect yourself and loved ones. Seek information update at a specific time during the day, once or twice. Remember, di ba dati ang dami nating nare-receive na mga text, tapos later on may magsasabi, no, fake news pala. This sudden and near constant stream of news report about the outbreak can cause anyone to feel worried. So we have to get the fact, not rumor and misinformation. We have to gather information at regular interval from WHO website and local health authorities platform in order to help you distinguish the facts and rumor. Remember that facts can help us minimize fear. I remember the one TV show, may guest na isang psychiatrist, ang advice niya, if you're watching news, do it in the morning or in the lunchtime, but not during bedtime. Kasi usually sa atin, nanonood, ang time natin, gabi na eh. Kasi daw pag gabi na, matutulog ka na, mas marami kang iniisip, mas masyado kang nagwo-worried. Not like kung sa morning or afternoon, marami ka pang gagawin after that, nakakalimutan mo na. So, nare-relieve na yung worries mo about the COVID-19. And always remember that laughter is the best medicine. Unless you are diabetic, then insulin is probably better. Okay, that's all. Thank you for listening. Back to you, Ate Marcy.
Thank you, Jamie. That was a very comprehensive lecture on depression. Okay. You can write your questions on the chat box kung sino man ang nais magtanong, no? But, Danny.
Yes.
Ayan, okay ka na ba? Siguro ako nang unang mag-throw ng question.
Huwag mahirap,
Kasi,
ha?
hindi, madali lang. Siyempre. Hindi. Sa mga patients na hindi nakakatulog, initially, sabi mo, very safe yung melatonin. But a lot of patients na mga diabetic, pag binigyan natin ng melatonin, hindi din sila nakakatulog. What is the second medications do you give to them?
So, ang hinihingi nila yung hinahati sa 4.
Ano yan?
Ribotril?
Yeah. Tama. Ribotril. Oh, 1/4 lang tulog na sila. Masarap na. Galing na ng tulog nila. Yung iba, Zolpidem.
Oo, pero mga na out of stock yung Zolpidem na yan nung mga pandemic part, Pero Danny, what are the precautions that we have to give to our patient when using these tranquilizers?
Yung lagi ko sinasabi sa kanila, kung 1/4 lang talaga, 1/4 lang inumin nila. Kasi meron akong isang pasyente, hindi nakatulog. Ginawa niya isang buo. Tapos, biglang nag-alala tuloy yung mga kamag-anak kasi hindi nila magising. So, take yung dose siguro, talagang wag bibiglain. Bihira ako nag-start ng 1/2 o kaya isang buo, talagang 1/4 lang. So, sometimes it can be habitually addictive. So, yun siguro isang precaution din para sa kanila na kapag nakaayos naman na yung tulog nila o gumanda na yung sugar, eventually natatanggal sa kanila. Pero meron talagang mga pasyente na maintenance na nila yung Ribotril. Siguro meron ako mga 2 o 3 pasyente na hindi na matanggal kahit yun nila. Na,
yun nga yung
Oo. Ako minsan sinasabi ko, expired na yung S2 ko, hindi kita magagawa ng reseta. So, wala silang way para makakuha ng Ribotril. Kasi, tsaka hanggang 2 lang, minsan binibigay ko. Kasi pag masyadong madami, minsan nagdedemand sila, hindi, 30 mo na kasi required. Hindi pwede. Baka silipin ako ng BPAD, habulin ako ng dangerous.
Minsan na-out of stock yung Ribotril dito sa amin.
So, then do you think that when before giving this tranquilizer, we have to do the do and don'ts to the patient?
Yes.
Kasi ngayon na alam. Tsaka, do you really advise them on what to do para ma-induce yung sleep?
Sometimes, isa din, di ba yung katulad dati, ang ina-advise natin, iinom ka ng gatas. Pagka matutulog.
Nag-rosaryo ka.
Kaya nang...
Diba pag nagro-rosaryo, hindi pa natatapos, tulog na.
Gabi-gabi. Yung shepherd na nga lang, huwag na mag-count ng sheep. Shepherd na lang, baka mas maganda pa yun. Pero, yung siguro pagka minsan, yung lagi ko sinasabi yung, huwag ka mahihiga kapag hindi ka pa inaantok. Kasi, kapag nakahiga sila, yung pinipilit mong matulog, lalong hindi sila nakakatulog. So, pero pagka ginawa naman nila yun, maganda naman ang effect sa kanila kaya naiintindihan nila kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin. Tapos syempre yun, sa panahon yun, syempre news, mga matatanda kasi lalo na, balita yung gusto nila eh. Kaya maghapon, kapag hapon na, nanonood na sila. Minsan, hanggang matapos yung mga teleserye, kaya gising pa rin sila. Kaya pagka napupuyat sila. And, syempre yun nga, yung sugar control, lagi. Kasi napupuyat sila dahil sa kakaihi.
Ihi. Oo, sa kakaihi nila. Minsan pag sinasabi ng pasyente nga hindi sila makatulog, bakit po? Dahil ilang beses po kayo umihi. Usually sa diabetes, nire-relay ko rin kung kung uncontrolled. Minsan naman controlled pero may edad na. Wala nang bladder control.
Mapapansin mo din yung diba, may mga younger patients tayo. Pagka nakikita natin, pag nagkaka-edad na sila, after a while, yun naman din ang kino-complain nila, yung changes in sleep. Siguro baka sa inyo din, nagbabago yung time ng sleep natin, umiigsi talaga. Dati, gigising ka ng 6. Pero ngayon, sinasabi na nagbago na, nagiging alas 4, nagigising na sila ng mas maga. So, may changes din siguro sa cycle ng sleep o sa mga hormones natin kaya nagbabago. Yung iba naman, maaga matulog, maaga magising. Kaya kung titignan nyo rin yung duration of sleep, kung nakukompleto nila. Kaya lang hindi rin maganda kung putol-putol. Yung ibang-iba naman, di ba, sasabihin nila, di sila nakakatulog. Pero, kaya maganda may kasamang relative. Kasi sila yung magsasabi, oh, naghihili ka pa nga.
Okay. We have a question from Miss Layden. When do you subject the patient to diabetes distress evaluation and depression?
Pag yung halimbawa yung patient nga parang nahihirapan kang i-control, tinatanong mo, then you have to give them the evaluation to know kung saan ang distress ng patient. Could it be emotional o sa regiment ba o sa social, interpersonal or sa physician mismo. So kaya very important yung natutunan natin sa ISD, how to do diabetes education. Kaya we are lucky, we are part of the ISD. Kasi natutunan natin lahat yun, kaya gusto tayo ng pasyente kesa sa iba.
And di ba talagang doon sa mga may diabetic nurse educator. Di ba bago pumunta sa yung procedure natin, parang napupunta muna sa nurse, parang doon nagkakaroon na ng konting counseling Nalalaman na nung nurse educator kung may depression or may pinagdadaanan yung pasyente. Kaya they are very important yung mga nurses when regards to this this part of the patient's depression, di ba? Sa mga diabetes
team kasi di ba hindi naman nagsasabi sa doktor. Doon sa nurse magsasabi.
Sa nurse nagsasabi kung anong problema nila.
Kaya yung nurse
tsaka yung nurse nagsasabi sa atin, may problema po pala, kaya hindi nakakatulog, tsaka hindi makakontrol. Yung pala sa nurse.
Yung mga nurse natin, mga chismax din.
Paninig ka, Ate Lady, no?
Oo.
Hindi lahat. One way of yung rapport. Tinuturo natin yun sa MI, di ba? Para malaman yung buhay-buhay.
Pero sa atin, Jamie, meron ba talagang gumagamit sa atin ng mga DDS and paid scale sa atin,
parang
sa
wala.
ISD? Parang walang gumagamit.
Parang i-convert, i-translate into Tagalog, di ko alam. Ate Lay, nagawa na ba? Parang merong plan na sana gagawin, i-translate lang into Tagalog. Pero hindi ko alam kung nagawa.
Ate Lay, can you have
i-unmute natin si Ate Lay para
Oo, Layden. Unmute nyo nga si Layden para magsalita kasi siya yung maraming experience in dealing with patients with diabetes, with depression, with regards in dealing with their diabetic management. Ate Lay.
Hi, good evening po.
Yes.
Kita ka nga, Ate Lay.
Ayaw!
Share your experiences with
experiences. Actually tama po yun kayo yung usually we talk first with our patient, ano yung pinagdadaanan niya. And usually, ano nga lang magsasabi ka lang, magtatanong ka lang na, kumusta na po ba ang pagtulog mo? Tama si Danny eh. Doon pa lang sa pagtulog, marami nila silang sinasabi. Tapos, susundan pa lang, kumusta po ang relationship sa bahay, pakikipag-usap. From there, lalabas na po yung mga feelings nila eh. And that feelings is sometimes will lead you to deeper understanding kung anong pinagdadaanan ng pasyente. And then we will endorse to the physician ano yung pinagdadaanan. Because if may pinagdadaanan po ang mga pasyente, the adherence is really poor. Kaya kailangan po nating gawa ng paraan yung mga bagay na yon. With regards to yung translation po ng DDS, wala pa tayo, hindi pa namin nagagawa ni Dr. May. We promise po noon, nung nandiyan si Dr. Polonsky, that we are going to translate it. We haven't done it, hindi ko pa po nauupuan kasi nag-busy na po tayo ngayong November. Since October pala, then November. So hopefully we'll be able to do it. Promise po yon, uupuan po natin yon. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitch, meron daw isa pang question, Danny. Can we combine melatonin with Benadryl or diphenhydramine in treating insomnia to our diabetic patients to be effective?
Ginawa ko na yan. So I think we can. Although wala naman ako masyadong nakikita ng mga trials with regards to mga combination ng pampatulog. So, kung yung mga pasyente kasi, di ba, mas safe ibigay yung melatonin. So, kung hindi sila na makatulog, pwede kang magdagdag ng iba pang gamot. Minsan sila naman ang magsasabi kung nakakatulog sila sa melatonin. Ngayon kung sasabihin nila, hindi pa sila makatulog dahil kung melatonin lang iniinom nila, then we can give other agents para makatulong sa kanila. At yung diphenhydramine, may 50 mg at saka 25 mg if I'm not mistaken. So, ilagay nyo lang kung ano yung kailangan ng pasyente. But sometimes it can be addicting also. So, siguro good for ilang days lang muna, 3 days or 5 days. Pagka maganda na, then naayos na yung cycle nila, yung sleep cycle nila, then you can discontinue the diphenhydramine tapos ituloy nyo na lang po yung sleep well. Ay, may brand.
Pero lang ko share. Yung usually yung mga patient ko na nagkakaroon ng depression or ang usually binibigay ng mga psychiatrist is yung escitalopram, yung mga Jovia, Lexapro. Then later on, nag-okay na rin.
Yes, really, they give it
half muna for a week, then 1 tablet, then iti-taper uli. Yun. Nawa-win off naman within a year. Nawawala na yung mga distress at depression.
Did you encounter a lot of patients with this COVID pandemic? Did you encounter patients who had a lot of fear, especially diabetic patients, when they hear that they have very high risk of having COVID?
Ako, sinasabi ko sa kanila, di ba nag-lecture ako before ng na hindi pala, before ang notion ko rin, nakala ko pag diabetes ka, ikaw na lang ang high risk. Hindi pala. Basta sinasabi sa kanila, you have to be on control. Basta controlled ka, pare-pareho tayo ng risk. Kaya lang pag diabetic ka at hindi ka control, napaka-poor ng outcome mo. So, yun, susunod sila. Takot na takot silang tumaas ang sugar nila. Masusunod sila.
Okay. Danny, may question dito. When is polysomnography indicated? Kailan ka magre-request?
Yung indication nila, kung na-assess mo yung patient na merong problems in sleeping o meron silang mga sleep breathing disorder o SBD. Katulad nung nagsuspect ka ng OSA, then chine-check nila yon, i-indicated for that kung may suspect ka na may sleeping, breathing disorder o mga sleep disorder o sleep disturbances, pwede mong pagawa.
Mhm. And then,
Sabi
Danny,
ni
di
Ate
ba ang
Nen,
gumagawa?
Ang price lang, medyo mahal siya kasi ang nakita ko, nasa mga 10 to 20,000 para lang patulugin ka.
Dalawa ang gumagawa niyan eh. Meron din yatang ENT specialist sa sleep, tsaka yung pulmonary specialist na na specialist sa sleep. Parang silang dalawa ang gumagawa sa hospital.
Kaya parang gagastos ka para patulugin ka. Pero yun, to assess kung meron ka pang ibang problema kaya sa pagtulog. So, siguro kung nagsususpecha ka din, you may want to do it. Lalo na yung mga may OSA kasi hindi naman nila alam na naghihilik sila, hindi nila alam na malakas yung hilik nila. So, baka pagka ganun, you may want to do it kasi tinitignan doon yung breathing pattern eh. So, kung nagkakaroon ka ng apnea talaga, so, ma-detect nung polysomnogram.
O merong from our mentor, Dr. Grace De Los Santos, sabi ni Ma'am, Benadryl should not be used to indecent sleep for a long period as they may cause Alzheimer's from my neuro friend. Better to give for sleep talaga like midazolam, alprazolam, and the likes.
Yes.
So,
kaya
pala
short term lang talaga siya. Hindi siya pwedeng tuloy-tuloy.
So, nagkakos pala ng Alzheimer's. Then, message from Wewet, sobrang takot lumabas ng bahay ang mga pasyente or pumunta sa ospital at baka magkaroon ng COVID. Yan ang fear nila. This is the reason why most of the patient that we saw right now or we see now in the hospital, sila yung mga grabe talaga. Most of the patient na elective surgery, wala kang masyadong makita nung una, no? But recently, we're seeing patient na meron ng mga elective cases ngayon. Medyo na-overcome na ng tao yung fear. Yan. The sleep test is indicated for suspiciously of OSA. Sabi ni Mami Grace. Sabi ni Mama Grace. So, meron pa ba kayong i-share?
Sabi ni Ate Nene, kung masyado daw mahal yung escitalopram, marami na pong generic brand.
Oo nga, marami ng brand.
Ang Jovia branded kasi.
Oo, pero meron ng mga Pilis Est. Diba? Mga mura. Okay. I hope you have a very we have a very nice discussion tonight. Sa elderly daw, sabi ni Wewet. Sa elderly caution with the use of diphenhydramine, minsan nagkakaroon ng delirium. Yan. Okay, thank you very much sa mga mga advices. Okay? So, to wrap up, our sleep is very important. The initiation, duration, environmental lights, and food we take are factors that can influence the control of our diabetic patients. We can say that sleep is a luxury, especially in persons with sleep disorder. We as doctors must be aware that we are dealing with depressed person to help them overcome this challenging part of their life, to keep them mentally fit. So, I hope that these lectures will add to your knowledge as a diabetologist that will make a difference in the treatment of our patients. Thank you and see you on the 8th series on December 5 with the updates of COVID vaccines and update on the stages of COVID-19. And with that, I say thank you with me, Dr. Danny and Dr. Jamie. And thank you so much for the assistance of Gets. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ay, Christmas na kila Dr. Arima. Oh.
Bye po.
Merry Christmas, ma'am. Nakapag-decorate ka na pala.
Virtual.
Decorate ka na pala, ma'am.